Hi, hello, and welcome back to another Skyblock video. My name is Osas, and today we will be talking about all of the different mainstream mage weapons in Skyblock and going over their uses, tips, tricks, and more. If you clicked on this video because you were looking for a video about which mage weapons you should choose to play dungeons at whatever floor you're on, this video will certainly help. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Like I just said, we will be covering mainstream mage weapons, which means no aspect of the dragons, no ember rod, just nothing people wouldn't use for a specific stage of the game or anything like that. The upper limit of each weapon's floor is determined by how much damage it can do, or how useful it is, and the lower limit is determined by price, not the floor you can begin to get the item on. So I'm assuming that you're able to get a carry and be able to use the items on earlier floors. Now, the first item we are going to talk about is the quintessential early game mage weapon, and that is the dreadlord sword. As we can see here, this dreadlord sword, it can be used as a normal sword, but its main thing is that it can shoot a skull, and that's its magical ability. Now, this skull doesn't do too bad damage. If we were to put on some type of mage set, now this dreadlord sword, although it costs merely only 5k coins for the non-top profitable one, it can be used on floors 0 through 3 and maybe even 4. Because it's really not too bad of a weapon. 9,000 damage for floor 1 outside of dungeons, you're gonna get places with that, especially since it's able to be an AoE type of damaging weapon. And that is why this weapon is perfect for people that are literally just starting out dungeons and really don't have any money at all. If you do have a little bit more money, you can go with something like the top quality version, which costs more like 50k coins. You can see that this one does a little bit more damage. You can see here that I have a mod that tells you what floor it's on. I don't actually know which mod it is, so I can't tell you which one it is, but you can just look at the damage. The higher the damage is, the higher the floor it's on generally, so you can just try and find one that doesn't cost too much but also has better stats. You can also look at the gear score. 294, 307, 302, 345. Just try and find a good one for your price. Next up, we have the Voodoo doll. Now, the Voodoo doll is definitely not a normal mage weapon. It's more of a side mage weapon, but it's a very good side mage weapon. Now, what the Voodoo doll does is it shoots arrows from every direction around the targeted monster, and it hits them for a damage, and then it hits it 10 times over 10 seconds. So it goes ding, ding, ding. It costs 200 mana. It's gonna one-tap these zombies here. But if we were to go over to, let's just say, a golden ghoul, and then we click on it, you can see that it takes damage every little bit, and then after 10 seconds it's over. Now this thing can actually hit more than one person if they're all in the same area, so it's also an AoE weapon. A lot of people don't actually know that when they're first starting out. And this weapon only costs 900k coins, and for 900k coins, this is a very good weapon. I used to be a mage, and this was my favorite weapon because it took care of the stronger mobs so that the right-click mages aren't super equipped to deal with in the early. Now, there is a counterpart to this, and that is the Ink Wand, which is our next weapon. Ink Wand does a very similar thing, except it only hits once, it costs way less, but the cooldown is way more. So, as we can see here, it does way more damage. You saw it did 76,000 instead of 11,000. However, it has a very long cooldown. You can see it's still on cooldown. So, nobody really uses the Ink Wand in dungeons because of the super long cooldown, and you could just use something else. But if you are early game, you might want that extra little bit of single target damage. The Ink Wand I would use on floors 1 through 4. You can get it from the Ink Collection Craft, and it costs 2 mil. Next up, we have the Bonzo Staff. Now, the Bonzo staff costs about 2 mil on auction. This one was 1.9 mil, which is pretty good for all of the other stuff that's on it. It's a boss drop from Bonzo, and I would use it on floors 1 through floor 4 and 5, maybe, but probably not. Now, Bonzo staff, as you can see here, it fires a whole bunch of balloons. That's what it does. Now, it costs 50 mana or 100 mana without the ultimate Wise on it. And if we were to put on Wise armor here to see how much damage it does a decent amount. You can see that it does a little bit more than the dreadlord sword just now, and so that's why I really don't like the Bonzo staff too much, because the dreadlord sword costs way less and it does almost the same amount of damage. Also, you can like get yourself knocked back if you use the Bonzo staff, so you can kind of like use it to escape quickly or something, but it does a good job on early floors and still doesn't cost too much. A good early mid-game mage weapon. Next up, we have the Frozen Scythe. Now, the Frozen Scythe costs about 5 mil on Auction House. You get it from Ice Collection 9, I believe, and I would use it on floors 2 through 5, however, it does not have AoE. It's a good mid-game mage weapon, does lots of damage and big range, but like I said, it has no AoE, so room clearing takes longer. Now, the Frozen Scythe has like this ice bolt that can hit through multiple enemies, so that is kind of AoE. Like we just hit both of them just now. And this Frozen Scythe would do more than the Bonzo staff 100% if it was maxed, but the Bonzo staff was pretty much maxed, so that's why it was doing a little bit less. The Frozen Scythe only costs 50 mana at base, so it is very spammable, as you can see, quite spammable. It also has quite a long range, as you can see, so you can hit stuff from far away. Yeah, and that's pretty much for the Frozen Scythe. Now, these next two mage weapons are LCM mage weapons. Basically, you left click, a white beam shoots out, and that beam does your normal damage with a multiplier of your intelligence. So you need normal damage, crit damage, strength, and you also need intelligence to be a good LCM. And normal berserk weapons have lots of crit damage and strength, so that is why berserk weapons can be used as LCM mage weapons. Standard ones like this are not gonna be too crazy good. You're gonna need to get some better LCM weapons if you want to be a crazy good LCM, but they are options. And next up, we have the Livid Dagger. Same thing with this one for Flower of Truth, same thing. Two left-click mage weapons, nothing really too crazy about this. And both of those I would use on floors 4 through 7. You're going to need get a floor 6 and floor 5 carry respectively for those two weapons though. They both cost about 10 mil. Alright, next up we have the Spirit Scepter. Spirit Scepter is where it gets kind of expensive. A clean Spirit Scepter is about 17 mil, and this one is semi-maxed out. Now, the Spirit Scepter is a really good weapon for the floors that it's good for. I would say Spirit Scepter works on floors 4 through 6, and for 7 it works, I guess, if you don't want to fly in stage 7, or stage 4 of boss. Now, the Spirit Scepter has a bat ability. As you can see here, it fires a bat, and the bat does lots of damage. This is a great mid-game, mid-late game mage weapon. It does lots of AoE damage, and great for clearing rooms. Next up is one that I actually do not have, and that is the Giant Sword. The Giant Sword, as you can see, is a weapon that has 500 damage and nothing else, plus an ability. Which makes it a very interesting weapon. Giant Slam does lots of damage, but it has a cooldown, so cooldown bad. Now, what people do is they add One for All, which triples the Giant Sword's base damage, but it gets rid of all other enchantments. That's why you can see these One for All Giant Swords with nothing else on them. So that's almost 5,000 damage in dungeons. Just 5,000 pure damage. That's kind of crazy. Now, when you pair that with LCM, it can get quite overpowered. Like, I'm talking 20 million damage, more than that, like really, really good. And so that's why the giant sword made it onto this list. It's an F6 boss drop, a rare one at that, and I would use it on floors 6 through 7 because it is such, it's quite expensive for most people. Next up, we have the Ice Spray Wand. Now, the Ice Spray Wand is a great mage weapon and needed in every endgame mage's hotbar, because it freezes them. So basically, you can produce a cone of ice that freezes them and does damage for amount of time. They also take more damage, which is good, it's good. Now, if everything didn't get one-tapped outside of dungeons, then this weapon, I could show you that it freezes the mob instead of, it freezes it. You saw, like, the little ice there. That little amount of ice, it stays on top of it until it dies, but it dies immediately because it also does an amount of damage. It's a drop from a Frozen Adventure, and because of its price tag, I would use it on floors 6 through 7. Now, these last two are very expensive indeed. The first one is a Midas Staff. Midas Staff is like the Midas Sword, and that the more you pay for it, the better it becomes, max being 100 million. Now, these things cost 150 million at the moment for a thing that's supposed to cost 100 million because there's no darker options. As you can see here, this thing has a Molten Wave ability, and basically it's like the tank ability where it's like a earthquake wave and it just like it creates just like a tsunami of gold pretty much. And it's a very good mage weapon. It's the second best mage clearing weapon in the game. Second only to the Hyperion. Now, there might not even be any on AH right now. Okay, there are lots on AH. But as you can see, the Hyperion, it is considered to be the best weapon in the game currently. And basically, the thing that makes it good is the Wither Scrolls. Now, each of these Wither Scrolls costs 100 million, and the Necron's Handle costs 400 million. So, just those three and that combined is a 700 million coin sword, plus all the max enchants on it. You could call it a 1 billion coin sword. Some of these are getting pretty close. Now, the reason why the Wither Scroll's ability is so overpowered, Wither Impact, is that it damages everything, it gives you a shield, and it's basically an AoE, so you can teleport everywhere while doing that. So imagine you're in a room, and you have your trusty Hyperion. All of these mobs here, you just teleport right through them and they're all dead. And then basically, mages can just do this everywhere and go just heading out everywhere, alright? It's very overpowered, and that's why it costs so much. People that are watching this video probably will not have enough for this weapon because it's literally that good. If you like this video about Mage, then you might like my Mage builds video, where I talk about everything a Mage needs for playing dungeons at different levels of the game. If you like this as well, please consider subscribing and or hitting the like button. It does make me happy, so yeah. With that out of the way, I have nothing more to say. See ya!